So,
Let's begin.
I'm pleased to open the third day of the meeting. In the last, for those of you who have been here or haven't been here, in the last 1.5 days, we have heard fascinating and thought-provoking discussions ranging from the politics of fear, democratura, I liked it, autocracy and theocracy, political and institutional decay, colonial bureaucracy, and shifts to authoritarianism, to misogyny and the future of democracy. To use one of the titles of the fascinating talks, I must say that so far I'm quite content that we have made it against all odds. It might be too, I'm not going, I thought to say some thanks to you, but I'll say it later. So generally I wish to thank all participants and those who have been with us, and later on I'll say more thanks. And let's go for our talk this morning. I would like to introduce our keynote speaker of the day, Professor Irad Malkin. Professor Malkin is more people are coming in. I hope they have enough chairs. We have enough chairs for all of them. Professor Irad Malkin is an emeritus professor of ancient Greek history at Tel Aviv University and a guest professor of the classics faculty at Oxford University from 2017 to 2026. He is a member of the Athens National Academy and a laureate, I didn't know you say that, laureate of the Israel Prize for History in 2014. His studies revolve around Greek religion, colonization, ethnicity, networks, and egalitarianism. His books include 8 edited volumes and 6 authors, books, many of which were translated to Italian, Greek, or Hebrew. Among these numerous distinguished publications, which were published by leading academic publishers, including Cambridge, Berkeley, and Oxford, I will mention only a few. Religion and Colonization in Ancient Greece, Leiden, 1987, Myth and Territory in the Spartan Mediterranean with Cambridge in 1994, Ethnicity and Identity in Ancient Greece, 2003, and more recently, I'm not sure if you don't have more coming, or with Josine Bloch, Drawing Lots from Egalitarianism to Democracy in Ancient Greece, Oxford University Press, 2024, which in fact is the theme that we are going so eagerly, all of us waiting to hear about here, under the title Drawing Lots, Democracy, Egalitarianism, and Sortition. Professor Malkin, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Do you see my share screen?
Yes.
Do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do.
We all see your PowerPoint very well.
Please,
See you and the PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. I'm terribly sorry I cannot be in Tel Aviv at this point. I'm a guest professor of the humanities in Coimbra, Portugal, until the end of the semester. And I was very glad of the opportunity, in fact, to join you today and talk about a subject that is should be spoken about more, I think, in the context of modern contemporary discussions of democracy. The quote, the first quote that you get on the screen is from an imaginary scene written by Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian of the 5th century BC, whereby he imagines, actually he insisted did happen, a scene of 3 consultants to the Persian king to decide what would be the best regime for the Persian Empire. Monarchy, oligarchy, or democracy. And the speaker who sides with democracy says, and I'm quoting from the screen, you can see, the rule of the people has in the first place the loveliest name of all, isonomia. It determines offices by lot and holds power accountable and conducts all deliberating publicly. There aren't many good things said about democracy in ancient sources. This is one of them. And it's interesting that the drawing of lots is the salient feature of that regime. Why is it called isonomia? I'll come back to that a little later, but let us remember that Aristotle, too, in his Politics, distinguishes between oligarchies and democracies by saying that what is the salient feature of an oligarchy are elections. By contrast, the salient feature of a democracy is the drawing of lots. So for this wise Greek person, this was an essential thing. And, sorry, I'm sharing the screen. I'll probably need to share something else with you. Well, this is the cover of that recent book that Ofra just mentioned, and I've written it together with Josine Bloch, who's a specialist on Athens. I have about 2/3 of the book. She's not one. And my main contribution to this study is the study of the 3 centuries that preceded the rise of the Athenian democracy. But clearly, the raison d'etre of this book is modern concerns with democracies. Well, this is the Greek world I'll be talking about. It's not the modern Greece that we know. These are all those black dots on the coasts of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, over 1,000 of them, city-states, independent, and many of them adopted the drawing of lots for a variety of aspects. Some of them did it for political reasons, as the Athenians did. So why are there modern concerns then? The viruses that attack democracies in the West are spreading. They are familiar, but have never before been so prominent. The breakup of social cohesiveness, dwindling responsibility to the idea of a single political community, derision of and alienation from politics, tribalism, sectarianism, populism, civil strife, and the immense power wielded by interest groups and political lobbies. There is, however, a way to cut the Gordian knot. Return to the roots and listen to the inventors of democracy. The ancient Athenians found their inoculation. They used lotteries to select and to rotate, and each year some 15% of the male citizens fulfilled a wide spectrum of public functions, like 10 government ministers. The archons were selected by lottery, as were 500 council members, or 11 members of the board to oversee the docks, 6,000 judges, priests, sometimes priestesses too, and many more besides. Well, unlike most ancient societies in Athens, citizenship, you'll be surprised to know, included women too, albeit with no political rights in our sense. Aside from the selection of office holders in Athenian democracy, procedural lotteries can establish turns, for example, who would chair the council for the next 24 hours. There was such a rotation. So imagine you're an Athenian judge. You were selected among the 6,000 people. It's morning and you want to know which panel you will be joined to by lot, a minimum of 200, and then you'd like to know which case you'll get also by lot. The chances in such a system to bribe or to influence is almost nil. There was no room for political parties in that system, political parties in our sense, and lobbies representing special interests were almost impossible to maintain because you could never know whom to bribe. There was the frequent rotation, the relatively short periods of office, and the large numbers involved. The lottery is never ambiguous. Today, candidates often smear each other and losers bear a grudge. However, since the lottery is impersonal, resentment against persons who got their position through the drawing of lots disappears and facilitates the political process. The Greek political lottery was not just an efficient mechanism, it reflected sets of values that we should consider important for our own democratic regimes, but are hardly manifest today. Aristotle defined the state as a partnership, koinonia, with good reason, since modern democracies have betrayed the ancient imperative of, in Greek, met echein tes poleos, namely sharing in the state, sharing. A citizen was to be like homoios to any other, deserving equal portions of the law. Portion is a key concept, I'll come back to that. And in fact, isonomia, the term we've seen at the beginning, the first name for democracies, by the way, the term democracy only appeared about 50 years after the creation of democracies. Isonomia means, well, we translate it as equality under the law, but for the Greeks, literally, it means each citizen gets an equal portion of the law, like anybody else. The sense of portions, because isos means equal and nemenes means to allocate, to assign, to designate, and so on. Well, unlike today, when we delegate power to elected representatives in Athens, the idea of citizens as sharers took very concrete expressions in the form of actual participation, whether through the posts distributed by lot or directly in the assembly, which enacted laws. The assembly was the sovereign political power, and the assembly, the ecclesia, was not chosen by lot. The notion of representation seems not to have even existed. Most significantly, the lot involved a much higher proportion than today of citizens. Because of their involvement, the police, namely the state, transcended their own specific interests. Now, imagine how much you would learn about your country's economy, its labor relations, even its gender relations, its communications, if you happen to be selected by lot to oversee your national airport for 2 weeks a year. Everything goes through it. You'll learn so much more. You'll be far more involved. In Athens, politics became a duty rather than a mere right. Western societies are in danger of being torn apart by sectarian identities, the opposite of sharing in the state. That sharing can only happen when citizens actually participate in frameworks that are mixed by lot, as happens with our contemporary but tiny juries in the United States and Europe, 12 instead of 200. Too many discrete life experiences encourage alienation and the shedding of the political from personal priorities. The process is ongoing today, dangerously fragmenting society. But ancient Greeks, not just the Athenians, had an answer. A major role for the lot was a mixture of society. In Athens, people from all walks of life, living in areas that were sometimes quite distant from each other, were allotted into 10 civic units called phylae or tribes, which formed the basis for most Athenian lotteries. For example, 50 men from each tribe, each mixed tribe, were chosen by lot each year to serve in the Supreme Council, the boule, that was responsible for proposing and preparing the laws. Today, sectarianism has become the blight of democracy that could rip society apart, a process that social media and its own tribes amplify in disturbing ways. The lot and the mixture it mandates would easily prevent that. Look, for example, at its scheme. This is the reforms of Cleisthenes 506 BCE, the foundation of the Athenian democracy, having split the country into 30 thirds from 3 different regions, city, hills, and coast. He created 10 tribes by a combination of those 30 thirds, and finally you get the Athenian Council. So each tribe like this consisted of people coming from 3 different areas. That was also the basis of the Athenian army. So there's a lot of mixture going on and cutting off of all patronage connections dangerously so. When mixed by lot, citizens depart from their tribe and find themselves working together, especially to avoid civil strife. There's a fascinating inscription from the small city of Nakone in Sicily, city was tiny, but it was torn apart by civil strife, like a tearing up of a kibbutz in Israel in the 1950s. So instead of fighting each other, they invited 5 arbitrators from another city who came and created by lot 60 pairs of couples, called brothers, one from each camp. And then adding another 5 randomly from the whole citizenry, provided they're not family members. So now we have 60 pentads, each one composed of 5 people. And these are supposed to sit down together, and in fact, the inscription ends by a new cult established to harmony. That is the way to avoid civil strife, so mixture. Well, such mixture lotteries, what do? They reshuffle the deck of society. The lot creates artificial ties that transcend entrenched political and social clusters. Such lotteries bypass deep-rooted, pre-existing lines of separation, implying an overarching homogenization of the political community. In fact, that is how our story with democracy begins. After decades of tyranny and its distinct power bases, the constitutive act of founding the Athenian democracy, as we have just seen, was to reshuffle citizens from different localities and redistribute them by lots into new multi-regional units. It was this random device that gave the Athenian society its new cohesiveness. The importance of mixture is supported by the network theory known as the strength of weak ties. Discrete networks, like patronage, kinship groups, constitute what Mark Granovetter calls strong ties. Since clusters of strong ties are often relatively small, it is difficult to reach out from them. It is rather the weak ties that hold a society together. Think of the mother of a cousin, of a friend, of my daughter hears about a new job. You would not know of it when confined to your strong yet narrow circle. Social systems based on strong ties can become fragmented and incoherent. New ideas will spread slowly, and scientific endeavors will be handicapped. In other words, the mixture creates weak ties, which can form an all-encompassing, strong, and dynamic connectivity in society. My former book was about Greek networks, so that's why I'm a bit close to the subject. In other words, a political community based on strong ties is weak. A political community based on weak ties is strong. Now, what about elections? Elections imply choosing representatives who would be the best men to do the job, as Thomas Jefferson thought. He believed in the natural existence of best men and recommended to John Adams, I'm quoting, a pure selection of these natural aristoi into the offices of government, end quote. In ancient Greek, the rule of the best spells aristocracy, aristoi. Today, instead of a top-bottom rule of kings by the grace of God, we have top-bottom rule of elected officials for fixed terms, drawing the authority from the people, although technically it is the bottom that elects the top. However, the vertical direction, top-bottom, remained the same since the time of the pharaohs, even in liberal Western democracies. As Bernard Manin, who did an excellent work of representative governments, has shown, both the French and the American revolutions preferred elections to the equality of democracy. Representative government, I'm quoting Manin, representative government was instituted in full awareness that elected representatives should be distinguished citizens, socially different from the ones who elected them. By contrast, Aristotle thought there should be no distance between citizenship and rule. Political freedom consisted of governing and being governed in turn. Instead of a top-bottom approach, the use of the lot in politics implies something else, a horizontal vision of society, a government truly by the people, involving all citizens who are both the source of power and sovereignty, which is not delegated to representatives. as Thomas Jefferson reminds us, elections are about elites, Aristotle. Nobody summed it up better than Aristotle. As I said, elections are the salient features of oligarchies. Democracies are based on the lot. Democratic Athens kept extending the use of the lot while efficiently running the state for more than 2 centuries before being subjugated by outsiders. In fact, in the Hellenistic period, democracies flourished over the Greek world, unlike before. So whenever I talk about this with people, they kind of smirk or smile or condescendingly say, come on, but it can't really work, can it? Well, it did work in Athens, a country the size of Iceland in terms of population. It's not a tiny village. And they had a big piece of stone with holes in it instead of computers. And it worked. This is the principle of the Daniel Kahneman. People don't believe truth or fact.
Irad,
It worked.
Irad,
Yeah.
sorry to stop you. Can you please raise your voice? There is, now I hear that people at the back of the room, which is full, cannot hear you well. As I said,
Well,
it's
I
a
can
new
do
room
this,
for
but
us,
I can't
so
do more than that. I'll get the computer closer to me, and I apologize
please.
for those who couldn't hear.
Me too.
Now, should we reintroduce the lot into politics? It would undoubtedly be an excellent tool for increasing the level of sharing in the polis. Some current thinkers, mostly with political science orientation, recommend precisely this, pointing out the obvious advantages of the lot as a corrective mechanism of the system. Suggestions range from revising the existing political mechanism to introducing new buffering organs into politics. Citizen committees, for example, could function as a buffer between the present politicians and the public. No such buffer had existed in the British Brexit referendum, where less than 52% voted to leave the EU, many admitting to ignorance, whereas the 2 Irish referenda of 2015 and 2018, or was it 17, that permitted same-sex marriage and permitted abortions had been prepared by citizen committees chosen by lot. These informed and involved the public, drafted the referendum with the astonishing result for Catholic Ireland, after all, almost 70% approved of both changes. So where do such ideas come from? The mindset of viewing society horizontally, with each individual discretely defined, equal and interchangeable with each other, had a long history before anyone had thought of introducing the drawing of lots into the political sphere. During 3 centuries before the invention of democracy, the lottery mindset had developed with a remarkable set of egalitarian values and a perception of the individual as holding an equal portion. Now, a collective mindset, is a common mental frame of reference that endures through time and is expressed when reacting to similar contexts and issues. It may be self-aware or not, and can be expressed in language, values, myths, collective representations, and implementation in practice. A mindset is tantamount to, that is how we do things, based on values, customs, and traditions from a worldview. The first introduction of the lot to politics came, as I said, during the foundation of Athenian democracy by lot after those centuries. Now, in my studies, I have sort of split them into various functions: distributive lotteries, which is where the sovereign group had decided about the action of drawing lots. They express a horizontal vision of society, the reverse of a vertical top-bottom view of authority. Distributive lotteries were employed to distribute inheritance, sacrificial meat, colonial lands, booty, catch, and positions in the state. Even the entire cosmos and the provinces of the gods were believed to have been distributed by lot among ancient Greeks. Selective lotteries too implied the contours of some group when picking soldiers for military campaigns, colonists for new settlements, warriors for special tasks, and at some point, even sorting out who were to be worshipped as the ancestral tribal heroes at Athens. Now we get procedural lotteries. I apologize, some of the screen is being hidden by... well, procedural lotteries were especially useful for rotation and turns, such as guard shifts, station on a race course, allocation of court cases, and rotating days of the presidency of the Athenian Council. In the 5th century, even entire theaters of war would be assigned to generals by lot. Mixture lotteries were used to homogenize the mother cities at the time of foundation of new colonies, and to do the same in the colonies, mixing the nucleus of settlers from a specific mother city with other Greek settlers who joined the foundation. To mix the people to avoid dissension and civil strife, and to reshuffle the deck of the Athenian citizens to create the basis of the Athenian democracy. And finally, the only religious use of that is the divination by lot at lot oracles, a discrete category for divining the intention of the gods for ad hoc issues, especially popular, the oracles of Delphi and Olympia. Well, take inheritance, for example. Upon death, the inheritance becomes a whole to be split up into equal or equitable portions that had been agreed upon in advance, either directly or through an arbitrator, and then distributed by lot. This was a recurrent pattern throughout the Greek world, expressed, for example, in distributive lotteries of booty, land, sacrificial meats. In short, we should never have seen the birth of democracy without the mindset and practice that made it both conceivable and possible. Today, the very suggestions to reintroduce sortition into politics are locked in a discourse that is too narrowly political. I'm thinking of the citizen committees of President Macron in France, suggestions of the Sortition Foundation, there is such a thing in England, to change the composition of the House of Lords by drawing lots. We cannot simply adapt an ancient device to modern constructs without understanding and accepting the mindset of sharing and equality that were, sadly, different from our own. The Greek lot was directly linked to whole sets of values and practices of which politics was but one, late expression. The social perspective involved a horizontal view of society as if made up of people sharing equal portions of the state and rotating interchangeably with each other. Being interchangeable means being equal. Perhaps the best place to observe a mindset is religion, and especially myth. Well, we know that unlike monotheistic religions, Greeks did not have a transcendent God as a subject for whom the world was an object. The Olympians, third-generation divinities, did not create the world. They were born into it and won the supremacy by violent revolution. In the Iliad, we are told how Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon conducted a lottery. Zeus got the heaven, Hades the underworld, and Poseidon the sea. The myth is also a good starting point to refute the facile notion that Greeks turned to the lot for divine decisions. They did indeed have a discrete category of divination, I mentioned that, lot oracles. Otherwise, the gods were merely invoked. When Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon conducted their distributive lottery, they were certainly not asking some other divinity to decide for them. This is the way Hesiod tells the story of tell how at first the gods and earth came to be, sings Hesiod, and how the gods divided their wealth among themselves, and how they shared their honors, timai, among them. And this is the great complaint of Poseidon after he's been told to leave the Trojan field and to get back, and he's furious. And he says to the messenger, no, great though he is Zeus. This that he had said is too much. If you will force me against my will, me who is his equal in rank, homotimon, since we are three brothers, all was divided among us. 3 ways, each given his domain. When the lots were shaken, he drew Elache, the gray sea. I drew the gray sea to live in forever. Hades drew the lot of the mists and the darkness, and Zeus was allotted the wide sky and the cloud and the bright air. But earth and high Olympus are common to all three. The poor god Helios missed the lottery, and so they had to create the island of Rhodos out of the sea just for him. We'll not read that now. We are not ancient Greeks and should not make assumptions that too easily bridge the gap between then and now. It is a mistake to have too much intellectual empathy. Ancient Greeks did not necessarily think the way we do, nor did they share our attitudes and worldview. However, whereas we may have enormous sympathy for Greek reason, Greek philosophy, Greek history, Greek science, Greek theater, lotteries, the origin of our democracies, are outside of our field of vision. Lotteries might seem weird, perhaps distasteful, smacking of the ill repute of gambling, and are often explained away. Paradoxically, rational scholars today try to save ancient Greek rationality by claiming that Greeks used the lot irrationally as a tool of divination. But Greeks did not live in the manner of Luke Reinhardt's book, The Dice Man, or Borges' Babylonian Lottery. Those ancient rational Greeks made a rational decision to apply a random device to so many aspects of their lives, and reasonably so. The lot implies interchangeability, which in turn implies equality. A soldier in the Iliad recounts how his family conducted a lottery to decide which one of his brothers should go and fight in Troy. All brothers are interchangeable, all are equal as an inheritance also, and the eldest could expect no special status later on. He has 6 sons besides, says the soldier, and I am the 7th, and I shook lots with the others, and it was my lot to come to this venture. Similarly, equality and interchangeability are historically evident in the 7th century. When the people of Thera, Santorini, sent out a colony to Libya, they held a statewide lottery among all those households possessing a minimum of 2 sons to choose which brother should depart. This is Herodotus saying, the Therians determined to send out men from their 7 regions, taking by lot one of every pair of brothers, and we found the foundation decree on stone. They shall sail in equal and fair terms, according to households, 1 son to be chosen from each of those who are in the prime of life. So the lottery is equality before the lot, then the equality of chances, who will get chosen to be sent out to war or for colonization. The Greek lots express values of equality and fairness that are distinct from ours. Does fairness consist in getting what one deserves? Well, in the Pirate Code of the Caribbean, which I looked at, it is considered fair that the captain should get more portions of booty than the cook. It's fair. That's his station. But that's not how Greeks saw it. Booty was distributed by lot. Greek fairness was not understood as proper to status, but as equal chances before the lottery, and when possible, equality of results. There's this concept in ancient Greece of the middle, meson, estomeson. You bring things to the middle and whence you redistributed them. And you see here in this schema, the lottery also defines the contours of exclusion and inclusion. Who deserves to share in the middle, where the booty is heaped and then sent out yet again. The booty is also political. This is a 7th century poet complaining. They seize possessions by force, and discipline or order cosmos is lost. He's complaining about what happens in his day. No longer is there an equal distribution in the common interest. Well, this is the translation you'll find printed, but the text actually says, literally, when the sharing out, dasmos, is still brought to the middle, estomeson, to be shared out equally. And metaphorically, to bring the regime esto meson to the middle means away from tyranny and towards democracy. For example, when founding a colony over a new possessed land, land too was kind of a booty, settlers would draw lots for equal-sized portions of land which were necessarily different from each other in terms of quality of soil and location, but they were equal in size. They were isos in Greek in size, but only like each other, homoios, overall. And these new settlements would sail on fair and equal terms. I'm skipping something, the time is running shorter. This is Sicily. And in Sicily, you'll notice this city, Megara Hiblaya, founded in 728 BCE. It all has to do with the kind of distribution and fairness. Let me give you an example from the Iliad first. At some point in the Odyssey, Odysseus and companions distribute booty consisting of goats. Odysseus conducts a lottery so that, I quote, no one will be deprived of his equal share, emphasis on equal, distributing 9 goats per ship by lot. Now, 9 goats per ship, you could have done it without a lottery. No, but that would be unfair to anybody getting a skinny billy goat instead of a nice, delectable, fat kid. So, it is not my purpose here to analyze all the workings of the Athenian democracy or to provide a systematic critique of representative governments today, or even to suggest specific recipes. Distribution by lot are being attempted today, and hopefully there will be more to come. But I urge us to remember the inherent problem with political parties and representation. Once they run on very specific agendas, once in power, they're supposed to be taking care of the entire people. The lot does not select according to merit or expertise. That was a sore point of criticism already in antiquity. Plato has Socrates object to the use of the lot, saying he would prefer a professional captain who knows what to do with a ship rather than somebody chosen by lot. Wrong, replied the Athenians. Leadership must be in the hands of the non-professionals. And they went on to attach to every professional captain a non-professional triarchos, who actually financed the ship from his pocket, also chosen by lot. So it is time to adjust our aims and revitalize the ancient historical world view. When we look at what Greeks did in colonies, for example, distributing by lot equal portions, this is a scheme of Megara Hiblaya in Sicily, where the colony, 728 BC, is already planned right from the start into square blocks, and the median line inside the block is exactly equal. For example, here you can see the equality of the portions of land each colonist gets, one in the city, one, of course, these are smaller, and one in the countryside, both by lottery. And the whole notion is total egalitarianism among the settlers. So perhaps we should revitalize the ancient horizontal worldview instead of merely inventing another way
Irad,
for a top-bottom rule of representatives.
what's going
The
on
arguments
today?
against
Irad?
sortition mostly concern
He doesn't hear me.
efficiency, professionalism, and long-term planning. Perhaps we need to think of a combination of the lots with elections, as the Athenians did. They did elect their generals and the treasurers by lot, and by elections, and several thinkers today have also suggested that. Perhaps we should enhance public involvement in various modalities, such as citizen committees. But most of all, we should take note of the egalitarian mindset and values that concern the equal and like portions of a citizen as articulated by ancient Greeks. It would behoove us to remember what our democracy is originally based on and the basic mindset that led to its birth. That ancient Greek mindset with its egalitarian values, the ancient horizontal perspective instead of hierarchical top-bottom, the idea of citizens as sharers that made the ancient democracy possible. Their lack today might disintegrate our own. Thank you.